back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, moving to Ukraine and Russia, power has been restored to 160,000 households in Kyiv after widespread outages caused by Russian airstrikes. However, the emergency crews have worked tirelessly in freezing temperatures to repair the damage. Kyiv's Mayor Klitschko has condemned Russia's barbaric attacks, which have left residents without power and warmth in the city's coldest winter in years. Despite the restoration, the repair work is ongoing, and authorities have urged people to limit electricity use to avoid further strain on the grid. However, the energy crisis that have been worsened by Russian strikes continues to disrupt daily life in Ukraine's capital. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Ms. Alison Mutler. She's a former AP Bureau Chief in Romania, joins us live from Bucharest. Thank you very much, Ms. Mutler, for staying with us. As you know, you were highlighting and we were talking about how European leaders are trying to see what they can do right now and show a unified front. What about towards Ukraine and Russia right now? What's their stance? How aligned are they, and what can European leaders do?
Well, generally speaking, European leaders, NATO members, most of which are NATO members, but not entirely, are allied on Russia. There are some exceptions like Hungary and Slovakia, which are much more Russia-friendly. But if you like the more powerful economically and politically nations like France, like Germany, and also like Italy and the UK, which is not in the EU, but it is in NATO and an important member of NATO, and it has an important transatlantic alliance with the United States. They are behind Ukraine. They support Ukraine. Their eye has been taken off the ball with all this fiasco over Greenland at the moment, but they will want, again, behind the scenes to be, and publicly as well, offer their support, and that is politically but also militarily, to Ukraine, and that now is the war is about to enter, I think it's fifth year now, fourth year, and they see Ukraine as defending Europe from possible Russian expansion, and Ukraine is having a horrible winter with all these strikes on energy infrastructure, which it's been a very, very cold winter in this part of Europe, and it's like -14, I think, today. So these people without water, without heat, and that obviously damages morale, and it wears people down, and that is Russia's aim, and European leaders are trying to counter that.
And do you think U.S. is still interested in mediating between Russia and Ukraine? And do you think European leaders are becoming, I don't know, in peace or open to the idea of talking directly with Russia because of, like you said, Greenland fiasco?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think I read the other day that the European Union wanted to appoint somebody who would actually negotiate or discuss directly with the Kremlin. So yes, I mean, I think, United States, Donald Trump did have rounds and rounds of talks over many, many months, and they proved very difficult, intractable. It wasn't even Gaza was easier. The Middle East was easier for Donald Trump. So I think he got a bit, I don't want to say bored with that, but he found the problem too difficult to solve. He said what he had to say, and then he's turned his eye to Greenland, to Venezuela, to other issues. So at the moment, the Ukraine file, as they say, the Ukraine-Russia conflict is really not high on his radar. But for Europe, it is. It's just not been in the headlines as much, apart from today with these terrible strikes on Kyiv and elsewhere in Ukraine. It's not been on the headlines because we've had new stories emerging with Greenland, but Europe does seem to be moving towards direct negotiations with Moscow, and meanwhile Russia is staging relentless attacks on Ukraine in the middle of winter. So Russia does not seem at this point at all prepared to make any concessions.
And lastly, some of our guests have said that U.S. is strategically doing all this to dismantle NATO, but some of our guests, on the other hand, have said that no, U.S. is doing this so that NATO countries will be alert about the strategic importance of Greenland. What do you think is U.S.'s strategy?
Hard to say. Donald Trump does, his modus operandi is one of surprise, as we saw in Venezuela. As Scott Bessent said, everybody calm down. It's possible he is trying to, and this would be best case scenario for the Western Alliance, it's possible he's trying to to make NATO aware of its strategic importance and come to some solution with European nations, which is what Bessent suggested today. Or it is possible he's no great fan of any international organization, be that NATO or the UN. That said, he's not a fan of leaving these organizations, because that means that the US has less power. So it's not, to me, it's not entirely clear what Donald Trump wants at the moment. But if we take Scott Bessent's remarks into account today, perhaps they're trying to work. I don't know what the US wants to have play a greater role there. I don't know how they would acquire Greenland. I don't think Donald Trump wants to invade Greenland. But he definitely wants the United States to have an important stake there. Whether something can be worked out with European nations, obviously that would be in everybody's interest. Well, it wouldn't be in everybody's interest, because Greenland does not want the US there. That's what the majority of the residents say. And Denmark does not want to cede power. But, things do change, and they might have to, for the sake of greater stability and peace.
With that, I would like to thank Ms. Alison Nuttler for joining us from Bucharest and sharing that insight with us on NewsX World.